Polynesia. The voyage to Hukulia. The culture of Polynesia was fading by the early 1970s. The modern world had largely pushed aside the long-held beliefs and practice of these Pacific Islanders. Other countries had taken over most of their land. Children were forgetting the languages and history of their elders. Engines had replaced sails on their boats. Modern entertainment was taking place of traditional songs, dances, and other customs. In 1973, though, a group of Polynesians began building the large ship in Hawaii. It was named Hukulia, the Hawaiian name of bright star that passes over those islands. The finished ship was a 19-meter canoe with 2 hulls. It was built to be as close as possible in design to the Polynesian ships of long ago. Such ships have carried Polynesians to settle islands as long as all across the Pacific Ocean. However, none have been built in hundreds of years. The canoe's creators wanted to study how Polynesian sailors found their way across huge distances with no land in sight. They asked Maupielong from the Caroline Islands to help them. Pielong was one of the few people who still knew the old ways of navigation. He was an expert in using the stars, clouds, wave patterns, and other clues to keep a boat on course. In May 1st, 1976, Hukulia set out on a 4,345-kilometer voyage from Hawaii to Tahiti. It carried no engines of modern equipment. The voyage was a success. The canoe and crew arrived in Tahiti's Papeete harbor about a month later. More than 17,000 people were waiting to cheer them into port. The first voyage of the Hukulia was more than a stunt. It proved that Polynesian explorers of an earlier time could actually do what the legends taught. It also served as a symbol, helping to awaken Polynesian pride to their remarkable achievements. Across the great ocean, the people of Polynesia have much to be proud of. Their ancestors made one of the greatest explorations in human history. From about 1500 BCE and 1400 CE, Polynesians explored millions of square miles in the Pacific Ocean. They settled island after island across a huge area. Over a long time, they did not get the credit they deserved. Many people did not believe that ancient Polynesians with basic technology had the knowledge to make such voyages. Polynesians left behind the story, but no written records of their achievements. Researchers had to use other ways to piece together their history. Archaeologists studied poetry and other ancient artifacts to find links between distinct groups. Experts compared the language of people from different islands for clues about who came from there. Recently, researchers have turned to DNA testing the genes of people's cells. Genes offer important clues about where people's ancestors came from and what helped unlock the history of Polynesians. Taken together, these clues showed that Polynesians first came to Southeast Asia. They settled for a while in what is now Taiwan and Philippines. There are both major island groups off the coast of mainland China. Starting about 3000 BCE, Polynesian explorers began sailing from the southeast, and they followed strings of islands called archipelagos. They reached Fiji and Samoa about 3,000 years ago. About 1,100 years ago, Polynesian exploration took a big leap into the unknown. In two main time periods, Polynesians sailed into huge areas of ocean no human had yet visited. First they settled Tahiti and the surrounding islands between 1025 and 1120. Then from 1200 to 1400, their voyager canoes spread out in many directions. They settled islands as scattered as Hawaii, Rapa Nui, Easter Island, and New Zealand. These points mark the three corners of what is known as the Polynesian Triangle. Traditional Polynesian culture. Hawaii, New Zealand, Samoa, Tonga, Tahiti, and other Pacific islands are all considered part of Polynesia. They are branches of the same cultural tree. As Polynesian groups split and spread out, they carried their culture with them. Some of these connections lasted through the communities on each island also grew and changed their own ways. Polynesians brought their religious beliefs with them as they settled new islands. One belief was the island of Mana, which means spirit or life force. Mana can be good or bad. Polynesians believed all living things possessed with sacred energy. Polynesian religions also feature many gods. Stories about how Earth and its creatures were formed are similar from one corner of the Polynesian Triangle to another. The Maori of New Zealand, for example, believe Rangi, Father Sky, and Papa, Mother Earth. Among the Hawaiians, these gods are named Au and Po. Maui is another character who appears in the Polynesian myths. He is a half-god, half-human hero. Full of mischief, courage, and cunning, Maui gave his name to one of the Hawaiian main islands. Polynesian culture spread in other ways as well, including food voyages loaded with their long, wide canoes with plants and animals to start gardens and farms. Their cargo included dogs, chickens, and pigs. Breadfruit, taro, and bananas were among the crops. Polynesian settlers grew wherever they settled. They were also experts at fishing and other ways to use the sea to meet their needs. Not surprisingly, one word is shared across the Polynesia, moana, or ocean. Separate by so much distance, though with different Polynesian groups developed in their own special ways, New Zealand's two large islands became the home to Maori. These people were known to be fierce warriors. They built fortresses of earth and stone called pa. Their foot-stomping dance, the haka, had become a proud symbol of all New Zealanders. Polynesians changed depending on where they settled. They raised houses, villages, and forts where wood was in good supply. In tropical climates warmer than New Zealand's, they found new ways to dress and build. Still, other Polynesians developed their own legends and cultural practices like hula, a storytelling dance style created by Hawaiians. Polynesia in modern times. For centuries, Polynesians had much of the Pacific to themselves. More than 500 years ago, though, European ships began reaching their islands. Their arrival changed Polynesian culture forever. European powers seized from Polynesian lands. For example, New Zealand was claimed by the British in 1788. Ships from Peru captured the people of Rapa Nui and made them slaves. Tahiti was taken over by France in 1880. Like many native people, Polynesians couldn't keep Europeans out of their territory, and their wooden and stone weapons could not defend against the steel and gunpowder. Even more were new illnesses brought by the Europeans, for which Polynesians had no resistance or cure. Native Hawaiians had nearly wiped were nearly wiped out by the disease. Starting in the late 1700s, the islands thought remained under their own control until 1893. Their queen, Leocanalia, was then overthrown by the United States. Hawaii remained a U.S. territory until 1959, when it became the country's 15th state. Today, native Hawaiians make up 10% of the state's population. All around the Pacific, Polynesians became second-class citizens of their own lands. Outsiders took their land and pushed aside their traditions. In some instances, language, tradition, religion, and other cultural practices were banned. Since the 1960s, however, respect for Polynesian culture has grown. Many Polynesian islands have become popular with tourists because of their natural beauty and the cultural traditions. From wood carving to dancing and surfing and fashion, Polynesian culture is now recognized and celebrated around the world. People with Polynesian ancestors had also made their mark in the world. Examples include Hawaii's Daniel Alaka, the first U.S. senior of the native Hawaiian ancestor. There are also wrestler and actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and football star Mike Iupati. Actress Alice Cavagno voices the title character in the movie Moana. Celebrating Polynesian heritage. Today, Polynesian people are proudly taking back their heritage, with young people are again learning old traditions, arts, and other parts of their culture. For example, the number of Maori language speakers in New Zealand is rising. Polynesians from Hawaii and Rapa Nui are beginning to recognize the brave and resourceful explorers they have always been. The Hokulu still voyages through the Pacific as well. Wherever the canoe travels, it carries renewed spirit and adventurous seafaring legacy of Polynesian peoples.